So Project. This is a podcast for people engaging in the never-ending process of expansion and growth. So the purpose of this podcast is to expand and grow through awareness, introspection, and stillness. We fundamentally understand that relative to all there is to know, we know relatively nothing. So with this in mind, we will consider and reconsider interesting perspectives, ideologies, and strategies for the purpose of self-actualization. Josiah, what are we talking about today, man?
We're actually talking about the concept of self.
The concept of self?
Yeah, which is fundamentally important to self-actualization from what I hear.
That makes sense. How did we come upon this topic of self?
Well, we were actually thinking about, why we're doing this, why we're continuing this, actually, because
Right.
we've shot 2 seasons.
Been doing this for a while now.
For a while, yeah.
Nuts.
Something that started out as just, conversations between friends and
In a dimly lit bar.
in a dimly lit bar during the middle of the day. We were working. We were definitely working
Yes.
on our entrepreneurial grind
Great.
early in that phase. But anybody that is an entrepreneur or has been an entrepreneur understands that for you to be successful, you have to a pretty strong concept of self. You got to be okay with failure. You definitely have to, or you're going to be in a situation or several situations where you have to go through self-discovery. You're going to have personal growth, alignment with what you may believe is your deeper purpose at that time, right? So, and that's human development.
I like how you said, if you want to engage in this journey of entrepreneurship, you better have a pretty strong sense of self. That resonates with me just because I've been through it. I've been through it twice now, launching 2 different companies, 2 different brands. And I've also had the privilege of witnessing other entrepreneurs, you being one of them. And I know what it takes. And I strongly suspect that if most people knew how much work it was, they wouldn't dare. I'm grateful that my former self did not know what I was getting myself into, because I don't know if the perceived benefit would have outweighed the actual cost. And so, hindsight is 2020. Of course, knowing what I know now is the best decision that I ever made. But all that to create the foundation for my question here, which is, what the heck does it mean to have a strong sense of self? That's such a nebulous phrase, but I would really like to iron it out, define it, and perhaps people can use it to build their own.
Yeah, so, I think it's probably better to get a standardized definition of that, and I'm definitely working on that right now because I am very prepared. But I will just kind of go through, what I think some of the common consensus is on having a strong sense of self.
Off the rip, I really just genuinely want to know. Like, I can give you my understanding of it, but I naturally assume that you have put a lot of time and energy into who you are, into your sense of self, and it's apparent, I think, to people when they meet you. I know it was apparent to me, and so I'm kind of curious, like, what are the hallmarks of that, right? This isn't just, I don't think you can point to confidence, because I think we have a lot of false confidence in our society too. And I think that it conflates that variable. It's really hard for people to tell whether or not someone is sincere because we have this fake it till you make it culture around us. And I'm not putting that down. I'm not trying to put that down right now. I'm just saying it is different by nature than true confidence. But that's just one aspect of like a strong sense of self, right?
Yeah.
What are the other ones, or what is in your definition?
Yeah, just so my basic definition would be a strong sense of self is, psychologically speaking, in a strong internal locus of control. Understanding your agency, I think, would be another way, if we're not going to define it in a psychological sense. Understanding the concept of agency, understanding something that I think is a hallmark attribute of humanity, which is the capacity for self-determination, right? So,
Capacity for self-determination.
yes.
As separate from determination, the little posters that I used to see on the walls of my elementary school that said, "If at first you don't succeed, try again." Determination. Picture of a tiger.
Yeah, and I think that's you know, a variance of self-determination. Because self-determination, I think, is something that is purely internal. I think self-determination just needs an environment. I don't even think it needs encouragement from the external.
This is fascinating.
Yeah, that's just what I've observed in myself and in others who seem to have a pretty strong sense of self-determination. But there are different areas of self, right? That we can look at if we have to apply a lens or several lenses to it. There's a psychological perspective, the philosophical perspective, the sociological perspective, the neuroscientific perspective, and existential perspective. Right? So those are different lenses that we can look at the concept of self. But I think ultimately the concept of self, like I said, boils down to self-determination. And, that's just something that's been with us since life itself has been around. First single-celled organism had to believe in itself to survive or to pursue whatever it was looking at, right?
I mean, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're probably right.
Right.
Thanks, Henry Ford, for that bit of wisdom. It also, when you say self-determination, it makes me think immediately about self-determination theory, which we both have backgrounds in psychology. But this is a very basic concept, really, that's like, what are the ingredients for expression, healthy expression? So you're going to go out into the world and do something that you look back on with a feeling like that was a meaningful contribution to the world. And I don't remember it in its entirety, but I know for sure it has something to do with competence, right? So this is like, what's your craft? How many hours have you poured into it? And what are the kind of results that you're getting? It has to do with autonomy, because autonomy is just that sense of agency that you're referring to when we're trying to define a sense of self. A strong sense of self is like, you have to feel as though you have some degree. I'm hesitant to use the word control, right? Because we've talked a lot about this.
I think the better, more applicable term here would be impact.
Oh, gosh.
You have some sense of impact with your actions, not necessarily control.
I was going to say influence.
Influence,
right?
Yeah,
just to have a voice, right? To be heard, literally or physically. I think that feeds into our sense of self. And then, of course, I almost forgot the last, or at least the last piece that I can remember from self-determination theory is the connection. And I don't think it's called connection necessarily. I can't remember exactly the verbiage that is used, but it's like belonging. We want to feel as though we're part of something that transcends us, right? Something larger than us. So I think that those are all incredibly valid. And I love that you brought in the psychological underpinnings of sense of self as well.
Right. Well, I was just going to, ask also, have you ever looked at any of the other perspectives of the concept of self, like the sociological perspective?
No, not really. I'd love to hear about them, though.
Yeah. Well, I haven't necessarily looked at all of them through, or looked at it through all of these lenses, but, from a sociological standpoint, right, self is shaped by social interactions and cultural connections. The concept of the looking glass self suggests that our self-image is influenced by how others perceive us.
Well, that definitely feels... what is our self-image aside from an amalgamation of other opinions that have been presented to us through feedback, positive or negative, ridicule or, congratulatory? That's the pool of data that we have to determine, our self-image. I mean, right? Am I missing anything here?
I mean, yeah, based on this lens, it definitely sets us up for that. But
That
I think
sounds tricky.
it
I mean,
is. I think it can be dangerous if it's not contextualized properly by
yeah.
us. Internally first, we put too much weight on, how we're perceived, and I
Well,
think. Oh, go
no,
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say that the agency, you through that frame of reference, we have suddenly become powerless because now our self-image is dictated entirely by factors outside of our control. We're still influencing those factors, right? They're forming these perceptions of us and our behavior as a result of the way that we're behaving in many circumstances, but through their own lens, which could be distorted or crystal clear. But my issue with it is that it makes the individual less than powerful.
Yeah, it does. You play below the point of power,
Right.
right?
Ooh, love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's not as much accountability, responsibility, and ownership, which would I think we could replace the ownership with stewardship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As we talked about in an earlier season, but I think if we put too much weight on how others perceive us, then it can attenuate our gifts and talents and how we express them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think, if I got to really give an honest answer about why we're continuing to do this, I think for so long, maybe we put a little too much weight into how others perceived us, or I can speak for myself. I have a more broader intellect when it comes to looking at things. And so it's just sometimes it can be discouraging because, you're talking to people and, they're focused on, a particular vertical, and that's fine.
Right. And maybe a few aspects of your life.
Right. And that's fine. I get it. And that happens in multiple arenas, work, family, so it's difficult to find community, and it's extremely difficult to sometimes not be as inflammatory because you're not resonating with people emotionally. You're not, you're staying above the point.
Right.
Right. And, when everyone else is, maybe spending the time blaming others or finding a reason to not necessarily improve themselves or find the agency or understand their own agency, then it can be very discouraging.
Yeah.
Right? It can be an isolating place. And I think a lot of people are in that position. And for me, it's been beneficial to do this because at least some of the feedback that, we've been getting is that, hey, I want to have these types of conversations. I want to explore these types of themes.
Yeah.
I just don't necessarily have anyone to do it with.
Yeah.
Right. And the answer to that, or the response, is you do. You do have someone to do it with. You can do it with yourself.
Yeah.
So, for me, this process started by myself, journaling.
Yeah.
Right. And I think
We're
that's
both
where a
big
lot
journalers.
of people.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Reading, introspecting, journaling, and then ultimately, you work up the confidence, the real confidence, right? Not the faux stuff.
Right.
Not the the imitation crab stuff, right?
Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you work up that courage to really put yourself out there in an intimate setting, just talking with a friend or prospective friend at one point. And
There was a time.
Right. And then you realize that there's something unique about it that, if expressed in the proper forum, could be beneficial for the audience.
Right.
Right. And so whether that's feedback that's given to you by a very small audience at the time, you know, it's definitely useful and applicable. And so, you know, I think that's how we're here, right? And that's
Yeah.
why we're continuing to do this, because it's a part of a much larger work, as you pointed out. It's a part of something bigger than, you know, ourselves. And I think what's bigger than us, that nothing so far that we know of can truly escape, is time. So us in time is bigger than just the individual within their finite context.
Right. I mean, it's so fascinating because, you know, I'm a very spiritual person. I appreciate spiritual traditions because I think it's a window into kind of like our zeitgeist, our the social organism that is you and me and all of the other human beings that we're sharing this planet with.
Right.
And I feel like it's in that space that you hear people talking about transcending time, transcending space. And that's just infinitely interesting to me. It's not where I live day to day. I think, you know, that would be an incredibly cool experience. And I look forward to, you know, maybe getting more insight into what that is like. But I can still appreciate it, even from an outside perspective. So
I think, if I can comment on that.
yeah, please.
You know, I think the process of collaboration, it actually allows us to transcend time. I mean, think about a skill that you have, that you've developed over time, and all the insight from being wrong while developing that skill.
If only I knew all these things consciously. I had to learn them the hard way. They're stored in my limbic system as painful memories. But
but what happens whenever you collaborate?
right.
You're much more likely to say, well, you know what? I'm gonna save you some heartache.
Right. I
tell
fell in
you-
that pit once before.
Right.
Here's where it is. Yeah.
Exactly. But you're really saving that person time, but you're also, I mean, saving that person pain, but you're also saving them time because they don't have to go through those failures, right? And so-
Ideally.
yeah.
I like to learn most of my lessons the hard way. you
Oh,
know?
well,
I'm totally kidding. I think, you know, for those of us that are avid readers, right, that is one of the primary motivations, because we've all been there in that situation where it's the, if only I knew this, if only I had known this, you know, when I was in X, Y, or Z situation, and I could have used it, I could have saved myself tremendous pain and suffering. And I follow that rabbit trail all the way out to the other end. However, the one caveat with that is that our greatest growth and learning, it's really hard to separate that from the suffering and the pain. You know, I'd just be remiss if I did not acknowledge how instrumental pain is in our greatest transformations and the transformations that ultimately enable us. Sorry, I'm like encroaching on your space over here.
No, it's
Thank
okay.
you. That ultimately keep us sometimes, or enable us to give our highest possible contribution to do, you know, the work that we feel we were put here to do, or the inverse of that, which is it could never happen. And that's all beside the point that I was about to bring up with you.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
It's Robert Mills.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
did not know that.
Yeah, you can't get to knowledge without being wrong. So to prematurely tell someone that they're wrong about something derives them of true knowledge.
Right. Deprives them. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's Robert Mills in a nutshell. But
I'm gonna have to read up on that later. I like that. See, and this okay, so this ties in perfectly. I'm gonna take the same question that you started with, this, you know, why the heck are we doing this podcast? And I want to reference back to the very beginning and something that you said that I really latched onto. I thought it was incredibly valuable. You said, if nothing else, this podcast will be a time capsule of our development. And Wow. Has it done that?
Mhm.
And, we're returning today after our brief sabbatical, being away for some time, focusing on other projects. And we're coming back to this project re-energized and excited to dive into these concepts once again, and also seeing some of the fruits of that labor, which is really exciting. But anyway, so that's point one. Point two, something that we discussed early on, but has become more and more relevant over time, I would say even more so than the time capsule concept, is that we're aware, you can hear this in the preamble of our podcast, relative to all there is to know, we know relatively nothing. And this podcast, if nothing else, is, I hope, a catalyst for people to begin thinking critically about their lives, about their relationships, about the assumptions that they have built their career upon. And just to explain this out a little bit, critical thinking is, we were just talking about this earlier, critical thinking is really nothing more than the careful examination and investigation of the assumptions upon which we build our conclusions. Right. So, and I'm still uncovering this today. We talked about this, a season or two ago, that I still, to this day, am finding beliefs that I have not examined or qualified or approved to be part of my belief system that are rooted in my childhood. Like early days where I had very limited information, and I was doing the best that I could with the resources that I had. And it seemed very logical at the time that to take, this piece of information and this piece of information and put them together to make this conclusion. But in hindsight, with what I know now, my perspective is infinitely broader, right? There's an exponential curve that happens, I think, throughout the process of life, but also throughout the intentional process of learning and growing, that it just kind of makes it pale in comparison to how I believed originally. And that's a gift, to be able to go and reflect, introspect, examine, and, modify, augment a little bit. Last thing I'll say on this topic is that, and I know that this was kind of like maybe my inner martyr, or the good Samaritan in me, which I appreciate you for checking that, and me always, but because you do a great job of that and you do it compassionately and holistically, but is that there is a chance that an idea that we share on this podcast may go on to help someone.
Yeah.
Maybe in some small way, maybe in a way that changes everything. And it is for that chance that I think all of this time, energy, and effort is worth it. And it makes it something that I genuinely enjoy the process here, the nature of the work, the creation of this. But the hope that it could go on to do something positive is also, I think, really cool to me. Yeah. I know I gave you a lot of information there.
No, I appreciate it. I think I'm tracking everything. I mean, for me, it is very important to, we're talking about critical thinking, and you reference several areas where we critically think, or even how we critically think, but the common denominator there is being self-critical, because you cannot truly evaluate your beliefs and everything you built on the beliefs unless you're critical of yourself.
Willing to prove yourself wrong.
Right. Falsification.
Yeah. Falsification.
Yeah. So, that resonates with me. That's something that I'm been adamant about, and you know this about me.
Oh yeah.
Since you first met me, that I'm on a mission to dissolve most, if not all, of my beliefs.
Yeah.
And truly build them up from my experience, and not necessarily derived experience.
Gosh, what a different way to live.
It is a different way to live. And it's an uncertain way to live.
Yeah.
And, I think it's a time capsule. This podcast, this work, this project is a time capsule. And that is one of the core components that I've left in that time capsule. And only time will tell if that is an experiment that is worth it.
How exciting.
Right? Yeah. So far, so good. So far, it's going well. Um,
You're still having fun.
yeah, still having fun, but I'm also learning, right? And getting positive feedback that people are, becoming more self-critical. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then becoming more critical of their environment, engaging
Mm.
in more metaphorical comparison around some of the things that, they thought were important, they thought were applicable, but no longer the case, right? So I'm happy to be some sort of a catalyst, even if that's just simply, me doing my thing or us doing our thing. If that helps people to get to the point where they're like, I want to rethink, or I want to understand where that thought came from, where that
Yeah.
belief or where that value came from. And if they arrive at the same conclusion that they were when they started,
Right.
great. I
But
think they did the
it's
calculus.
just asking the question, is this serving me?
Is this serving me?
Because I think we are so blind to this subtle but profound truth that we can let go of anything that doesn't serve us.
Right.
That is within our power. It seems like incomprehensible, but it seems to me to be one of the foundational or fundamental truths that I've uncovered, at least in my experience. Also, want to reference back to just a little tidbit that I forgot, but genuinely, when we first started this podcast, personally for me, a motivation was I wanted to bring the genius of my friend Josiah Ball to the world, because I'm not trying to flatter you right now.
Yeah.
I had a genuine concern that if you were not asked, there was no one around you that was asking the questions and listening, and I love doing that. That's a sport for me. Right. Some people ask me what I do. I'm a professional question asker. So
You're just too cool to be a journalist.
I mean, I think in another life, I definitely would have pursued journalism, but not this time. Anyways, and this is a fun way for us to do that, which is good. Also, you just, do you? I don't know that we've ever really talked about Aldous Huxley. Okay, all right. Because this is like one of my early mentors, who was a psychologist, would reference Aldous Huxley a lot. And I thought that was like super interesting. And so I kind of looked up his work. And the more that I've come to know about Aldous Huxley, the more I've come to admire him as a person. And I'm not like, I'm not advocating for every idea he's ever had. I'm just saying, like, I appreciate some of his thoughts, right? But you kind of remind me of Aldous Huxley in some interesting ways, and just in the way that you see the world a bit more objectively, perhaps. And through that lens of rationality in an irrational world, you're able to make predictions that feel eerily accurate and familiar. This is, I think your wife, Robin, likes to call it eagle vision.
Yeah.
Or, this is a great way to describe
Perch.
Josiah.
She describes it as
the
like
perch.
being on the perch, yeah.
And I think that's wonderful. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. And last thing that I want to say, if anybody is intrigued by Aldous Huxley as a person, something else that makes him live on in history is that he died the same day, November 22nd, 1963, as two of my other favorite people of all time, C.S. Lewis and JFK, of course.
Oh, wow.
Died on that day, right here in Dallas, which is, tragedy. But anyways, all that to say, you have any additional thoughts on the perch or that concept, eagle vision, how it served you, how it's gotten you into trouble, perhaps? Because I'm sure it has from time to time.
Well, I think I have, what's known as a high need for cognition. Probably, ever since I was a kid, I've just kind of always wanted to understand how, and I enjoyed the process of, figuring out how something happened.
Yeah. Break it down for our listeners who might not be familiar with what high need for cognition is, because it's such a fascinating concept.
Yeah. So high need for cognition is it's basically, we have people in our society, they're not any more intelligent than any other person, but they really enjoy the process of thinking, and they seek out arenas where they can think through things. And
Well,
when
you
you have
found the right place then.
yeah, for sure. And then you have, conversations with them, and you typically the person walks away and they're like, I never thought about it that way, right? Or I've never, seen it from that perspective. But really, a person that has a high need for cognition, they're also exploring, during that interaction or engagement.
Yeah.
And they're learning and they're thinking about things in different ways. They just simply need an environment to, to express.
Safe
and
environment.
Yeah. And to work through that, right? And so I think that's, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because what happens when we don't have that safe environment? We have a high need for cognition, desire to understand, and we don't have a safe environment. Like, I know my mind jumps to, I think there's a statistic out there that says, and I'm probably butchering this, so forgive me, please. But like within the first 5 years of our life, we ask something like 30,000 questions, which is this massive amount, just compared to normal human language across the normal human lifespan. We're asking a drastically high number of questions during that time period. And I think as adults, and you've been party to this too, I'm sure, it's just kind of, it can become a frustration. Like, dude, I don't know. I don't know why things are the way they are.
Right.
But I think that is a great way in which human beings there's this outcry, this need for understanding that is totally underserved, and in many cases just completely unmet. And I think when you are a high need for cognition type of individual, or you would score more highly in terms of need for cognition, and those needs aren't met, there are some consequences as a result of that.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I agree. I think there are consequences. I think when I've been in environments where, that need wasn't met, or, it was combated, I've typically acted out, my younger age,
For which you get punished.
right.
So that's what we
Some
do with
punitive
kids who
measure,
act out,
for
right?
sure,
We punish
yeah.
them.
And, as an adult, I think it's easier to just kind of to isolate, right? But I think, I don't know, I kind of probably around your age, I was just like, what, I don't really care. I want to learn more about things, and I want to, I'm can tell that I have a unique perspective.
Mm-hmm. Your brain works a little different.
It works. Yeah, it works differently. And so, I just started to really, write a lot, and have conversations with the people that, I trusted, safer space.
Mm-hmm.
And, realize that, man, this is different. We need to expand, how we express some of these things, because in doing that, I'm going to learn more.
Yeah.
Right? It's actually going to feed the need for cognition.
Oh, yeah.
The high need for cognition.
Big time.
And in doing that, I think that's going to allow us to arrive at more insight and perspective.
I agree. I think it's a major catalyst for growth. And I think that that was one of the really profound things to me, just of our relationship, and just how it's kind of evolved over the years, is around having this common bond of a desire for knowledge and a willingness to engage in the difficult conversations, and not necessarily coming in from the perspective of self, but just from the perspective of knowledge seeker.
Yeah.
Let me leave my degrees at the door and everything that I think I know, and just and just sit down with you and ask, like, why do we think things are the way that they are? Is the current paradigm, is it serving us or is it punishing us? And if it's punishing us, why might that be? These are all like questions that, they're deep questions. They have very deep and nuanced answers. And, it's not even about the answer. The answer is irrelevant. It's the question asking. It's the critical thinking. And like you talked about earlier, how do we see our environment as a result? One more reference to Aldous Huxley. I just want to tie this full circle because I was talking about you making predictions and him making predictions, and he's got a few years on you. He's no longer with us, right? But he predicted that Western cultures, and specifically the U.S. was a prime candidate for this due to the concentration of major corporations here, that eventually the people, and this idea is like, it's so eerie to me, the people would no longer need to be controlled by force. That we would create a society in which through distraction, entertainment, and needless striving, fickle striving. I want to buy this car, so Josiah thinks I'm cool. Whatever it is.
As he walks by.
Yeah. But through that, the distraction and the entertainment and the relentless pursuit of nothingness, that we would placate ourselves. And we would stop thinking critically, and that we would kind of go happily into the void. And I'm not trying to say like that's where we are today, but I think that there are some interesting parallels there to be considered. And it's all about this: what is our current trajectory, and where does that map to? And you ask that question more than anyone else I know.
I was going to ask, that's not a hard prediction to make now. But
back in the day, that was.
I think back in the day it was a harder prediction to make. I also think that there wasn't as much awareness. But I was going to say, are we going into the void or staying in the void?
Yeah, how much? I mean, do you really need to go further into the void, right? I guess that's just kind of like a function of how cemented are you in that belief structure? How firm are your convictions, right? Which is ironic because, oftentimes we see people standing upon some not so solid ground, but they have the deepest conviction about it.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's Frankel's existential vacuum. There's like this profound void within us, the need for something, purpose, the need for certainty. Right. There are several things that serve that void. But, I think when you see people doing that, we talked about in an earlier episode or earlier season and episode, derived need versus inherent need, right?
That was a fun conversation.
Yeah. And I can reference times where I've been that way. It could have been when I was, 16, or 25, I don't know, or 35. Right. But when I can remember needing to be right about something instead of either being happy about being right or not needing to be right at all. I think it just had more to do with my, derived need. I needed something to distract me. I needed something to fill that void. And I guess, you wake up from a stupor and you're like, man, what was I thinking? Fighting that person at the grocery store for that gallon of ice cream was not worth it. Or, brandishing my firearm in the parking lot, for that parking spot was not.
I still can't believe you did that.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
but I mean, as human beings in our society, we find ourselves in those types of situations.
Yeah.
I mean, and oftentimes it's not funny, right? I mean,
Not in the moment.
we can make sitcoms and things
Yeah.
like that will provide some
Satirize
sort
it.
of
Yeah.
some comedic value to these weird situations that we get into because we can't be wrong
Yeah.
about something. But I think those people are missing the value of being wrong, and I'm referencing, Robert Mills here, right? I had to learn the difference between needing to be right and actually being right by not being afraid to be wrong. The quicker I learn to be wrong as often as fast as I could.
Right.
So then that way I could actually improve and be right around something or do something with improvement at its core. The better I was and the better my environment was for it. And I think that's the case with all of us.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Just to clarify too, because I know that you know this, but like the quality of being right is inherently relative. We're only right until the next theory prevails, and like suddenly our old understanding what was right at the time has now been not necessarily debunked, but just proven to be incomplete.
And that's the mindset I took.
Yeah.
Wait, I believe I'm right about something right now.
Right.
Let me think forward to a time where this may actually be wrong.
Right.
Now, why can't I think that way now? What is preventing me from thinking that way now? Is it a social context? Right? Because if it's how I'm perceived or how I believe I'm perceived,
Right.
that's the thing that's preventing me from figuring out
It's like a
that I'm
wavy
actually
mirror.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's distorting. It's a
Yeah.
distortion.
Yeah.
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 And so, I mean, I think what I talk about this all the time where, it's collapsing time or rising above, how you feel, not necessarily compartmentalizing, but processing that, processing what it would be like to be wrong about the smallest thing or the biggest thing or anything in between, and accepting the emotional tax, working through that,
Right.
and then improving.
Because there is an emotional tax. There's a matter of pain, right, that we feel in response to, oh my gosh, I was totally wrong about that.
Yeah.
I couldn't have possibly been more wrong about that.
Yeah.
That's happened to all of us. We know that.
And it's one thing for that to happen, behind closed doors.
Right.
Or we flip back in our journal and we see, oh, I was wrong about that, right? But it's a whole nother thing for it to be on YouTube.
Yeah. What a gift.
Right. What a gift.
Because, that ultimately, I think, that pain, right, of being wrong and having it on record that you were wrong is instrumental in opening up our perspective, really encouraging our internal openness to flourish and blossom. And I think that's where we become receptive to new ways of thinking and doing.
Yeah.
So
Feeling.
And feeling, yes, because there are new feelings out there too. It doesn't have to be all sadness all the time. Actually, something that I've been enjoying so much lately. So there was this Harvard psychologist that was his name is Dr. Richard Alpert, and he went on this journey in academia, kind of rose to the highest of heights, within that field, and was really just appalled by how little we knew at that time. And this is like, frame of reference is the 60s, right? So, but it just became totally underwhelmed with what our understanding was of the human mind and the psyche and just the underpinnings of all of the whys and hows of human existence. And he, eventually, this is a very long story condensed into just a matter of seconds, but eventually, segued into the yogic tradition. And when, study on it, was like, maybe there's something in the spiritual realm for me. And ultimately, what he found, or one of his realizations during this time, was that he could exist firmly outside of or inside of, depending on your frame of reference, duality. So this, what made me think of this is we're talking about feelings and how you can be both happy, like euphorically happy, and just absolutely, and also have like this crippling depression almost at the same time. And we, like, in our modern society, we like to put these in boxes, right? And they're mutually exclusive. You cannot be both, and that's foolishness, right? Because like in this state, I am either happy or I am either sad. And I think a lot of people would follow that frame of reference. But what Dr. Alpert helped me understand, and later become more widely known as Ram Dass, I don't know if that might connect with people, but is that he could be both at the exact same time. And he would break it down in terms of, am I happy? Yes, of course I'm happy. Look at this beautiful world that we live in. Look at the flowers blooming. Look at people getting married and building families and contributing to their community, and like so much love and connection and happiness. And like, how could this be a bad thing? This is all good. While at the exact same time, we have, I think that the running statistic right now is every 6 seconds, a child is dying of starvation. It hurts to even just say that, just like us to quote a statistic like that. But that is a reality that, we don't understand. We don't understand hunger and starvation like that, except for like, perhaps a few small pockets in the U.S. where we do have those. That is a reality, or, somebody has a way of understanding that. But those two scenarios can be equally true, equally valid, and equally impactful on your individual human experience in this moment, and that you can be happy for all the goodness and love in the world, and you can also weep at the inhumanity amongst humans at the same time. That was powerful for me. I'd never made that connection in my mind.
Yeah.
Before. There wasn't a question in there. I just wanted to
No,
share.
I that's something that I definitely I can see, quite simplistically. You think about here's a parallel. So, like I think we've talked about this. If it hasn't been on the air, we've
At some
talked
point,
about
on
it.
air,
Yeah.
off air, yeah.
But in the world of like F1, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're always trying to find the harmony between the degradation of their tires and the functionality, right?
Right.
And they're doing different things at different times to make sure that they optimize it. And throughout the course of the race, or as soon as they put those tires on, they're degrading.
Right.
While they're getting performance. The same time, within the same instance, both things are happening, right? And they're trying to find the harmony and balance between the two to get the result that they want.
Right.
And so I think on a simplistic level, the happiness and the sadness, whatever other emotions there are, for whatever other reasons that there are occurring at the same time within us. And I think in a very simplistic sense, because we are, from the moment we're born, we're dying and living within the same second.
Right.
Right? So there is no or. They're both happening.
The or is an illusion.
It's an illusion that there's some sort of bifurcation between the two. And if we can look at ourselves, we get to a point where we strip away all the illusions, all the bifurcations, the binary thinking.
The separateness.
The separateness. Self is not separate at all.
It's not.
At all. There's a body, there's skin, there's whatever separating us, but
Right.
we're all a part of the same self.
Right. That is a truth that is,
Yeah.
I think it can be really hard for people to grasp, but I think it's perhaps the single most important truth to our future existence and future, potential for flourishing, potential for human advancement is, like it or not, we exist currently. The prevailing paradigm is that of competition. I'm not like knocking competition at all. I'm a competitor. I love to compete. So much fun doing it. You know this. We play games. We do
play
silly
games,
things, But at the same time, when it comes to team structure and team effectiveness, collaboration, it really puts competition to shame. We've seen this. The most high-performing teams in the world are not those that are pitted against each other. They're the ones that have the highest degrees of trust and safety within their team dynamic. This is why we do the work that we do in helping organizations cultivate trust through psychological safety, through this concept that I can share my true views with you, Josiah, with no fear that you are going to ridicule or berate, or there's not going to be any retribution, right, for me being honest about who I am and what I believe.
Fear of reprisal.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I think for me that's easy because I can easily see myself, doing whatever it is that I would deem worthy of reprisal or worthy of retribution. I can see myself doing that.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? I feel like that is such a powerful concept, and it's not something that that most people discuss. I've heard a million times, like, I would never do that. I would never.
That is very hard for me
years.
to understand. And I think that's like someone who is so stuck in the bifurcated zone where it's like, the them, us. Yeah. And it's like, if that is happening, if that's the way you see the outside world, how do you see yourself?
Right. Right.
How many?
It's not you.
Right. How many verticals are you sliced into inside?
Right.
Right. And not that I'm judging that. I'm asking, how have you factualized? I don't even know if that's factionized, I guess.
Yeah.
Yourself. And that must be extremely taxing.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking is like, the question is, how comfortable is that?
Yeah. The disassociation with self.
Yeah.
Like you're just like split off.
It's like the concept of fractals. And I feel like you would probably understand this better than I, because it's like maybe more up your wheelhouse. You actually work in architecture and engineering and stuff, and I don't. But just this idea that you can have a portion within a portion that is perfectly identical and symmetrical to the greater piece, but they're just little bitty pieces, a piece within a piece. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like, I think what we sometimes do with ourselves is it's all us.
It's all us.
It's all us, but we've divided it. And
I think, research will suggest that has to happen in some ways. There has to be an amnestic barrier that builds in us to protect us, our psyche and things like that, right?
Yeah.
I get that. My high need for cognition is just so curious to know, even in myself, what do we miss out on whenever we lay what's the stuff that goes between the bricks?
Grout?
The grout,
oh,
right?
Mortar?
The mortar? What is the...
Yeah, brick and mortar.
Yeah, the space, though. There's space that's taking up.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, interesting metaphor.
So what are we missing in there?
Right.
By creating that separation.
That barrier.
That barrier, right? Within ourselves.
It's inefficient.
it's inefficient.
Right.
It's inefficient to disassociate. I understand it may be necessary to some degree.
Right, but it slows down information transfer. If you're having aspects of your sense of self that are disconnected, and meaning they're not communicating, then you're inhibiting your ability to learn and grow from experience. Wow, I've never thought about that before.
Yes, because you have essentially you've increased factors that would prohibit you from perceiving, right? We talk about reception of information, perceiving the information accurately.
Yeah.
You're living in full reality and not actuality, there's a huge difference.
Right.
Right. But I think the more we dissolve our beliefs, because I think the beliefs are the grout.
Right.
I think beliefs are grout.
Oh, interesting.
Right? That segments pieces of ourself from pieces of ourself.
Yeah.
And I think when we can dissolve that, and then the two pieces of self connect, there's friction. It hurts. Right? I think we slowly begin to accurately perceive actuality and let go of reality.
Perceived reality.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. I wonder how many people just followed us down that rabbit trail. Because I think we found the carrot. I really do. That was awesome. So I was thinking I would kind of reel us back in and talk about something that we thought we might talk about, and that's meaning of life, right?
Yeah.
What's meaning of life? And if you ask Pablo Picasso, this honestly is probably not Pablo Picasso's quote. I feel like every quote gets attributed to Pablo Picasso at some point in time. I don't think we really know who said this, but it's brilliant nonetheless. And I do love Picasso. So here's the quote. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. The reason that I love this quote is because I think it is equal parts true and controversial. I think that because we live in a society predicated upon worthiness, which is built through ownership, through acquiring assets, right? That it's really counterintuitive to think about giving your gift away, because it's implying not a pay to play or a quid pro quo type of situation. At least that's how I'm interpreting it, right? Is that that the gift exists to be shared, not necessarily for the purpose of being monetized or building a personal empire, right? What do you think about this? About all this stuff?
I think the gift. I wouldn't say it's meant to be shared. I just think it can be shared.
Yeah,
it could be shared.
Why the hesitancy around the purpose being to give it?
Well, there's such there's an involuntary or compulsory connotation around how we see purpose.
Okay,
in
please
a lot
explain.
Of ways, or how we see how something is meant to be. Right?
Ooh.
There's a fatalism in it, right?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. So I think
too rigid.
Yeah, I just think if it is up to a person to give it, then is it really fatalism? Right? Is it really compulsory? Is it really mostly out of their control or influence?
Maybe I skipped a step. Maybe in reality, we have the optionality inherent. Like we can choose to give it, we can choose to keep it. My mind, it leapt over that bridge in a hurry because I know the ROI from giving your gift to others for their benefit, and it's tremendous.
And I hear you. I think that is a great reality to live in. I think what I'm referencing or thinking through is actuality, because you actually don't have to give your gift. You actually don't have to live in those benefits.
Right.
And there are plenty of us that do that.
Right.
Right. But then there are plenty of us that, what? Give it, and we receive the benefit, and we live in actualization.
Right.
Self-actualization.
There
right?
it is.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I was going with that. Is
Yeah.
that I think it's a choice. I think when you realize that you have something worthy of giving,
Mm-hmm.
or something worthy of cultivating within yourself,
Right.
you
So
realize,
that's where it starts.
yeah, you actually realize, like, wait, um, there's nothing really special about me. Like, if I don't share this, then there's really going to be nothing special about me, right? And so I think that's the actuality that a lot of us have to realize, is that we all have inherent gifts and traits and attributes that make us unique to this time and space. And I can't say if they're meant to be shared. I can just simply say that they could be shared.
Right.
And boy, what a benefit it would be for you and your environment.
I think that it really pokes at the intersection of my like idealism, optimism, and like just visionary tendency. Like I can't help it, but just to imagine a world where people are intent upon finding their gifts, and once they do, they experience the magic of giving it away. And the huge benefit that they receive as a result of sharing this thing that is something that is unique about them, but they're not, necessary. It's not just about leveraging it for personal gain.
Yeah.
It's about community, and like
Connection.
Connection. Absolutely. Which that's right. You want to make a connection with somebody, try helping them.
Yeah.
Right. Help them with something that is important to them, and you're likely to cultivate a connection there. But I just think, like, in terms of the problems that we're facing as a species, if there is greater collaboration and connection and mutual sharing, it just drives us forward on a massive scale, on a scale it's like incomprehensible in present day. We've never seen it before. Look at all that we've been able to accomplish by being very frugal with our gifts, and I think in many instances never finding them.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it. We may actually be, severely behind in what we
As
could
a
have actually,
society?
we could have actually
there's no
done.
question in my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I imagine many people share that view.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think about it. We've been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
And, just our little society here, the U.S., we've accomplished something in roughly, 3 centuries or 2.5?
Yeah.
2.25 probably. That took Europe 17 centuries to accomplish, right? We're an advanced economy, arguably one of the most advanced economies the world's ever seen.
Right.
And when
Not
I say
necessarily a
economy,
fair
I mean,
fight. Yeah,
right,
but
yeah. But I mean, what I mean by that is like we have advancements in all areas of what it means to live in the world and thrive. We have provided those opportunities for ourselves to some degree. Simplistically.
Right.
But yet we have so many things that we haven't accomplished that could be easily accomplished.
You know what? Like, when you're talking about this, I just can't help but think, and this is like a hilarious just reality TV reference, because as you know, like, I don't really watch TV, and I definitely don't watch reality TV.
Right.
But my wife
here.
loves the show Survivor.
Yeah.
And me just being like having a deep and abiding interest in social psychology and personality psychology, this is just such good stuff. I can't pass it up. And the situation with like what we're talking about with America and like over, less than 3 centuries and comparing it to perhaps a competitor. And, it makes me think of in Survivor, they divide, these are just random people, not random, they're chosen for a reason, but they're supposed to be representative of the populace. And they're divided into teams and they're given a very small amount of rations. And this is a survivalist game. So, you're sleeping on the ground, you're eating very little food every day. But I love to see how they distribute the resources. Like rice is pretty much the number one resource in this situation. And there will be some tribes, they call them tribes, it's a group of, maybe 5 to 10 people that will, they'll have rice that's supposed to last them, that could sustain them for 39 days if moderated. And you have some tribes that eat the entire bag of rice in the first 10 days. And then it's like they are literally going to be on the verge of starvation, and it's going to drastically decrease their performance in the actual subject of the game are these challenges. They're extremely physically and cognitively demanding tasks that a group of people has to work together to achieve. And America reminds me a little bit of the tribe that like ate all the rice in the first 10 days. Right?
A bit myopic.
Yeah, and it's like with really compelling results, but it's like, what are the long-term effects of this? And from this is kind of like a casual reference to fossil fuels in a way as well. I think that it's hard to consider like the U.S. economy without really considering one of the major stimulants to it, and the world economy, right? It's a global economy now. Not that this podcast is not about economics at all, but I know that that's an interest of yours, so I'm trying to tie it in there.
No, I think if I could bring it full circle, because I track everything you're saying, I'm kind of to a point where, some of my business aspirations, I see some of these challenges that we're facing, and I think it would be a very low vibration use of my high need for cognition as a person that just has a general high need for cognition. Doesn't make me any more intelligent or, less intelligent. To use that competing, to use that debating and arguing with people. I think it's a better use or higher use of that skill and desire to collaborate where I can, but most importantly, create with that, right? So I think what we're doing here is we're creating. I'm in my DISC profile, we talk about this. I mean, DISC is like, basic assessment. It's not advanced. It's rudimentary.
To,
Exactly.
more advanced tools, but still good.
But I'm what's known as a high DC, which is a very low amount of the population that takes it. Mm-hmm. But I'm also, within that DC, I'm known as an architect. So I kind of learned that it's much more likely that, if I see it and I can build it out in my mind, it may be a waste of my time and effort to try to convince others. And more than likely, to our reference something you brought up earlier, the need to want to convince people, that's something that I've learned that like I don't need to do anymore. It's not the best use of my time.
Yeah.
But can I constructively have a conversation and collaborate with people around the vision? Yes, I can.
Yeah.
And then from there, who can I work with to create some of these solutions?
I love how you opened up that thought with it would be a low vibration use of energy to meet this high need for cognition. And I just want to like expand on that a little bit. And how I conceptualize a low frequency of energy is just like not your highest and best use of your time,
Yeah.
right? And not the type of work that is likely to build upon your strengths, build upon the value that you bring to the world, and be rewarding to you internally.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
how I interpret it.
$90 steak knife that you use to make peanut butter and jelly with. I mean, that's fine. You
Hey,
can
I
do
love
that.
peanut butter and jelly.
But I just think when we reference America, right, and how much potential we have on a collective and individual basis, and the Survivor reference, I think, is a great parallel.
Thanks.
I think on an individual level, if what we're doing right now, just helps people decide to stop leveraging their high need for cognition by, trying to convince others, if they stop doing that and they want to just simply create, and we're inspiring them to create whatever their version of the Enzo
Creation.
project
Yeah.
is, whatever that is, right? If they're inspired to, you know what, these guys started this project and they're on the 3rd season of it and they're continuing to do it. And, they got a few listeners now. I really want to, do something that brings me joy and brings me happiness and taps into my, inherent desire.
Yeah.
If it does that and nothing else, mission accomplished for me.
Beautifully said. The most modern theories of creativity posit that we are all inherently creative, but we are blocked at varying degrees, right, from our ability to create. And I think dovetails so nicely with what you're sharing in from the frame of reference that we are here to create and contribute, to make art, whatever that art is, and put it out on display to share with the world, and just encouraging people to do that, even if they have this limiting belief that might be deeply rooted that they are not creative. Maybe that's worth examining.
I agree. I mean, the limiting belief, if we could bring it back to self,
Yeah.
they just simply don't believe in themselves. And whatever that means, like you just haven't explored yourself enough to say, you know what, I'm okay with standing alone.
Right.
If I must, I'm okay with the social, perceived social constraints that may happen. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with the mental and psychological tax and emotional tax that may come from being wrong on the air, right? Or making a mistake that our editor says, like, no, man, if you cut that out, then it's going to mess up the flow of the conversation. I just simply want people to be okay with themselves enough to tap into their inherent desire to create.
What a worthy mission. So we had another quote queued up, and I think that this is just absolutely the perfect time to share it. This one is from both of our favorite authors. I know for me, one of my favorite people, and just like one of the people that inspired me to really double down on psychology as a field of study, is Viktor Frankl. And this quote is, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." There's something you said just a little bit ago that made me think about, how I know so many people that have just become really frustrated with the game, the system, whatever your current situation is. And it's natural to take out that frustration on the object of your frustration, right? Yeah. But I think we could also perceive this as being an invitation to impact what we do have influence over, which is ourselves. and that's just this process of introspection and reflection. And it might seem kind of boring to some people at a glance, but it gets very, very interesting and very challenging to do the deeper that you go into it.
No, I agree. I just thinking back on the past year, what I've been able to accomplish in the past year is a direct result of coming to this actuality that, okay, yeah, I didn't get into this particular school, right? Or I didn't come from this particular place.
Yeah.
I think I had spent so much time thinking about like, man, what if I had these resources, or what if, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And
Anything.
yeah, and then I think I realized like, wait, and several people have told me like, look, man, that doesn't matter. Like, still, like, I get something whenever I talk to you, and that may be enough. And I had to realize that it is, so whatever gifts and skills you have, they're enough for you to do what you need to do, more than enough for you to have the impact that you could possibly have. And it takes getting over the loss of, what could be if you had these things that you never had.
Right.
If you were accepted by this group that you were never accepted by.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's no one that you could forgive. There's no one that you could be angry at enough to help you get to the point where you just simply decide to create. Like, I'm just going to do my thing. I have enough. I have it. Am I still alive? Yes.
Yes.
Can I speak? Can I write? Can I do whatever? Have I had an experience worthy of insight? Yes.
Yes.
That's enough.
It's incredible to me the things that we allow to hold us back. I was recently having lunch with a mentor, and we were just talking about business and all the things. And I must have made a comment about being a younger entrepreneur. This is like, I think I find myself in a lot of these situations where we're sitting down at the table, to present services, right? They've heard some good things about us from their friends, and they want to sit down and have that conversation. And I'm coming in just as this 29-year-old me, and and it's not lost on me that like maybe there would be a little more credibility if I had a head of gray hair, or something like that. And he challenged me on it. He was like, hey, I want to talk about something. It seems like you have some doubts about your age and, people's willingness to trust you as a result of your age. And I was like, yeah, I think that's accurate.
That's accurate.
Yeah.
That's actuality.
And he was like, where does that exist? And I was like, what? And he's like, where does that belief exist? And I'm just like stumbling, trying to answer his question. And he's like, well, it's not in reality because you have demonstrated time and time again that you have extreme value to contribute to these individuals, that want to do something worthwhile with their organization, and the culture around it. And, it kind of just like, he was like, I don't see you that way. And I haven't seen you that way for years. But that's a belief that I formed when I was first starting out, So it's just like, sometimes they just hang on
to adapt to what? Failure.
Yeah.
Whatever failure you experienced, and there may have been a couple of times where that actually may have been the case, but it's like now it's a broad perception of actuality. And now that broad perception is now your reality. And he was reminding you of like what actually is the case.
Right.
And maybe he didn't have those situations to reference. Mm-hmm. And what most of us do in that situation is we'll remind them of what actually happened.
Right.
And then we'll start battling and, going back and forth around that on what is actuality. And the truth is, it's like, well, it's both of those things. It's a comprehensive view of all perception. That's reality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all actuality.
Right.
It's what actually occurred. And so I get that. I've been there, still there to some degree. There are some, assumptions made about, like, oh yeah, I read something or I heard something or whatever it is. And then like I show up and they're like, man, you're really young. And I'm like, I'm not really young.
You do look younger.
I do look young, but I'm not. And in business that can be tough. In entrepreneurship that can be very tough. And I've gotten advice from people, right? But ultimately, I did what your mentor did, which is like, nah, that's not actuality. That's not really the case. No, I'm not going to go put on glasses just so that I can appear to be smarter.
Right.
As smart as I actually am. Right. Or no, I'm not going to, grow out my gray beard so that, and it is actually gray. But I'm not going to grow it out because to make people feel as if they're taking really good advice from somebody that looks like they could give really good advice now. Right. Like, I mean, like, is it good advice? Is it, valuable?
Right.
Like I'm providing value. Is it valuable? Yes. Okay. Well, then I'm not going to argue with you about that. I'm going to collaborate with you if you want that.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to accept actuality, which is there is somebody else out there. There's something else out there, and I've got time to go and connect.
Right. Explore. Develop, create.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I think that is the perfect end cap to our episode today. As per usual, we found it. And just to add a little bit more flavor to it, I'm going to throw a quote in here that I think will hopefully tie all this together a little bit better. And this is by another one of my like really formative psychologists, Carl Jung. And he says, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Josiah, thank you. As always, it's a pleasure.
Thank you. Season 3.
See you next time.
All right. The Enzo Project is brought to you by Bolt Human Capital and Noon Holdings. Edited by ELE. You can find the Enzo Project on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Music, the song Full Bloom by Jewel and Nuamina. You can find them wherever you listen to your music.